Are your commander decks struggling to impress? Your latest brew not passing the vibe check? Whether you're trying to find the right balance or you're just wanting to spice up your deck building, today's video will cover 3 tips on how you can improve your commander deck building skill. Our goal here is to help you build more unique and engaging decks that can provide a fun experience to your next game night. To begin, just know that these are a few ways that I personally have used to change up my approach to commander deck building that I felt made me enjoy the game far more than I had been. And while they may work for you, others might have better suggestions, which I am absolutely open to. Feel free to leave your own tips in the comments section below, and without further ado, let's begin. Following the road less traveled is a great way to approach commander deck building. A lot of commanders these days pretty much spell it out for you, like Edgar Markov or Urza, but there are hundreds of other options out there that are more open-ended. Some commanders can be taken in entirely unique directions that will make your playgroup question your choices. Let's look at my Chatterfang deck as an example. Most Chatterfang Squirrel General decks focus on squirrels and token synergies, and look to go infinite with something like the Pitiless Plunderer combo. It's pretty cut and dry, and while this is absolutely a valid strategy, I found cards like Squirrel and Squirrel Squatters to be very interesting cards. These two are squirrel creatures who also interact rather well with the artifact attraction cards from Infinity. These are a series of artifacts that live in their own deck, called the Attraction deck, and they only enter the battlefield when you use an ability that opens an attraction, like the Squirrel Squatters. From there, you can roll a d6 once per turn to attempt to visit your attractions, and whatever lit lamp pips on your attraction cards correspond to your die result are visited, and then you get those abilities. I found this to be funny, ridiculous, and random, and a lot more fun than simply building a generic token deck. Yes, my deck still wants to make squirrel tokens, and it absolutely can. But now I can pivot to win the game by having all of my squirrels gain horsemanship by riding the merry-go-round. Or I can get value out of my burnt-out employee creatures that give me card draw and tokens based off of visiting attractions. Because the attraction cards are artifacts and don't really need to be untapped to use, I can add in cards like Lodestone Mirror, which can tap an untapped artifact I control to give itself +1/+1 until the end of turn, which works very well given the number of artifacts this deck can play. In building this deck, I was using a popular commander, yes, but in building it in this unorthodox manner, I'm subverting the expectations. Someone might sit at the table and be frustrated to see them facing off against the Chatterfang deck, but after a few turns, it could be evident that the deck is going in a very different, more engaging way. Squirrels in Magic are already something of an unserious creature type. Who am I to fight that vibe? EDA Trek and deck builder websites like Architect are great resources to help you put together your deck. And we are fortunate to live in an era of Magic and online information sharing where it is so easy to find cards for your lists. EDA Trek specifically compiles data from across multiple different deck building websites like Tapped Out and Moxfield to put together pages of cards most often seen in whatever commander you're trying to build. Learning how to use these websites is what can really help level up your brewing skills. On EDA Trek, you can add multiple filters to hone in on what kinds of cards you want to look at for your deck. You could choose a budget limit, whether you want a low-end budget where the expensive cards are not suggested, or you could select an expensive budget where you do see the expensive card. You can use this to look through cards, but what's important to note is that a card being cheap does not rule it as irrelevant in expensive lists. Many cards found in budget lists might actually be relevant and powerful even in less restrictive lists. You could choose a theme for your deck, selecting one from each commander's list of popular tags. Something I like to do in building decks is look through the EDA Trek page of a commander that's similar in function to what I'm trying to do with my deck. So, for my cross deck, I do have a decent amount of cards that care about +1/+1 counters. I can look at the EDA Trek page for not just Cross, but maybe Azuri, Claw of Progress, Skullbriar, the Walking Grave, or even Gave, Guru of Spores, to see if there are any cards unique to those decks that for some reason might not be included in Cross. These decks all feature +1/+1 counter synergies and can be helpful in finding something spicy. You also aren't obligated to use the cards on EDA Trek. You can choose to include cards not found on any of these pages, be it a pet card you love and want to add in, or something that might fall under the radar for people. I've built lists using Scryfall and their advanced search features, searching the commander's color identity, and then just spending a few hours shifting through pages, seeing what's available. Play around with the search tools and see if you can stumble upon some hidden gems. A lot of commander decks win by simply turning their creatures sideways and going raw. That does work, but then you have some other decks that do other less raw things. Maybe you have a combo that you use to win the game. Maybe you have an alternate win condition like Laboratory Maniac that you want to work towards achieving. When you begin building, try picking out some win conditions to work around and then build up from those individual focal points. You might find that you can refine your deck strategy from there and building into a more focused deck straight away rather than adding in the win cons at the end. If you're building up something with +1/+1 counters like my cross deck we talked about earlier, a win condition like Simic Ascendancy might be a great starting point, and so it would be wise to include cards that put multiple +1/+1 counters onto multiple creatures. Hence why something like Filigree Vector is so vital to that deck. I also saw that Proliferate works well with giving extra +1/+1 counters after some of these initial abilities resolve. So if I've got the Vector out and have all creatures, both mine and my opponents, rocking a +1/+1 counter on them, and my Simic Ascendancy has some counters as well, I could speed up the process by proliferating all of the counters. If Cross is also out, those opponent creatures with counters being proliferated will be goaded again, not only forcing them to attack my opponents, but keeping them from attacking me before my Ascendancy hits the 20 growth counter threshold. Now I want to note that everyone approaches this format differently, and what might be my best approach to my own deck building might not work as well for you. Maybe you play Commander with different expectations, or your playgroup has a different intention than mine. But I want to open the conversation now to you, friendly viewer and possible commenter. Do you have some tips or tricks for our fellow Commander players? New or old, we can approach Commander in the same way that we approach something like playing guitar. You can pick it up easily, but mastering it is impossible. We've always something new that we can learn. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, likes and shares are the best ways to get the word out. I've heard bird is the word, but if you're new here and you know all about the bird, subscribe so you never miss a future video. And as always, thanks for watching. I'm Flynn.